Before we get into tonight's stories, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I write these from New Jersey, and every time I see how far they travel, it genuinely surprises me. Let me know you're out there. I want to be clear about something before I get into this. I'm not someone who notices people. I take the same subway line every morning. I sit in the same car. I stare at my phone or out the window, and I do not pay attention to strangers. That's not coldness. That's just what you do when you live in a city. You develop a kind of selective blindness. You stop seeing the people around you and start seeing shapes, movement, presence or absence of it. So the fact that I noticed her at all should have told me something. It was a Tuesday in early March, and it had been raining hard for 3 days straight. The kind of cold, heavy rain that doesn't let up between showers. It just shifts intensity. The platform was crowded, and everyone was wet. Water dripping from coat hems, umbrellas pooled against ankles, that particular smell of damp wool and frustration. I was standing near the center doors when I saw her on the opposite platform, waiting for a train going the other direction. She was holding a red umbrella. Not a dark red, not maroon, a bright, almost luminous red. The kind you'd see in a children's book. In a sea of black and navy and gray, it was like a flare. I registered it the way you register anything that disrupts visual monotony. Looked at it for a second, and then my train came and I forgot about her completely. Wednesday, the rain was still coming down. I saw her again. Same platform, opposite side, same umbrella. I noticed it because of the umbrella, obviously, not because of her. I couldn't have told you anything about her face or height or what she was wearing. Just the umbrella. Thursday, same thing. I started to think she must work somewhere on that opposite line, that we just happened to have synchronized commutes. It felt like one of those small, meaningless urban coincidences. The kind you mention to a coworker and they say, "Huh, small world," and you move on. The rain stopped Thursday night. Clear skies forecast through the weekend. On Friday, I was leaving the office around 12:30 to grab lunch from a place I'd been going to for years, a sandwich counter about 6 blocks from my building. I was waiting in line, looking at my phone, when something in my peripheral vision made me look up. Across the street, near the entrance to a parking garage, a woman was standing with a closed red umbrella. Not open, just held at her side, tip touching the pavement, handle in her hand. The sky was clear. I looked at her. She wasn't looking at me. She appeared to be looking at something to the left of the restaurant entirely, and after a moment she turned and walked in the other direction. I stood there for a second. Then I ordered my sandwich and told myself it was nothing. It wasn't the same woman. Red umbrellas exist. I didn't even know what the woman from the subway looked like. I'd only ever noticed the umbrella, so for all I knew, I was just noticing umbrellas now. The way you learn a new word and suddenly hear it everywhere. That's what I told myself. Monday of the following week, I stayed late at work, left the building just after 7, which wasn't unusual, and started walking toward the subway. It was a clear evening, cool but dry. About half a block from my building, I slowed down without fully understanding why. The way you sometimes do when your body processes something a half second before your brain does. I stopped and looked around. She was across the street, standing near a bus stop bench, not sitting, just standing. The umbrella was at her side, closed, and this time I looked at her properly. She was ordinary in a way that's hard to articulate. Medium height, dark coat, hair pulled back. There was nothing remarkable about her except the umbrella and the fact that she was completely still in a way that most people aren't when they're waiting for a bus. She was facing me. I walked to the subway. I didn't look back. When I got underground, I stood on the platform trying to convince myself I was catastrophizing. But then on Wednesday, I was at the gym. Not on my way there, actually inside, on the treadmill near the back. And when I looked out through the glass partition to the street below, I saw a woman standing on the sidewalk with a red umbrella, not open. And I was on the 3rd floor. I went to the front desk. I asked if there was a manager available. I tried to explain what I'd been seeing without making myself sound like I was losing it. The woman at the desk was patient, but I could tell she wasn't sure what she was being asked to do. I didn't know either. Nothing had actually happened. No one had spoken to me, touched me, left anything for me. I had just been seeing the same woman in multiple places. I went home. On Friday, I went to the farmer's market in the plaza near my apartment. Something I'd done almost every Friday for the past year, which I only thought about later. It was maybe 11 in the morning, busy, people moving between stalls. I had just picked up a bag of things when I saw her standing about 20 feet away, directly in my line of sight, the red umbrella at her side. Is this lady messing with me? I don't know why I did it. I think I was just exhausted from the low-level fear of the previous 2 weeks, and she was right there, and there were people all around me, and something in me needed it to stop being ambiguous. I walked toward her. She watched me come. She didn't move. I almost turned around, but I kept going. I stopped in front of her and I said, "I've seen you before, a lot. I don't know if you know me or if this is some kind of misunderstanding, but I need you to tell me what's going on." She didn't say anything. She just held out the umbrella. I took it because I didn't know what else to do. It was heavier than I expected. She walked away before I could say anything else. I stood there holding this umbrella in a crowded plaza, and a few seconds later, I opened it without thinking. Maybe to see if there was something inside. Maybe just reflex. There were photos pinned to the inside of every panel, printed on regular paper, small, maybe wallet-sized. All of me, in my apartment, through the window. I'm on the 4th floor. I couldn't tell you when any of them were taken. I couldn't tell you where she'd been standing. I still don't know how long she'd been watching before she decided I was ready to know about it. This happened during my 2nd year of college. I found the coffee shop during the first week of the fall semester, which meant I found it before I'd really settled into any routines, and somehow it became the routine itself. It was a narrow place on a street just off campus. Exposed brick, small tables, decent Wi-Fi, and a window seat along the front that looked out onto a moderately busy sidewalk. I liked watching people walk past. I liked the sense of being inside while the world moved outside. I'd go in around 2 in the afternoon after my last class, set up my laptop, and stay until the light changed. I noticed the man for the first time about 3 weeks into the semester. He was standing on the opposite sidewalk, across maybe 30 feet of street, and he was looking toward the window. At me, maybe. I wasn't sure. Tall, pale, older, wearing a dark coat despite the weather being fairly mild. I registered him the way you register anything mildly unusual, and then looked back at my screen. When I looked up again 10 minutes later, he was gone. I didn't think about it again that day. But he was there the next afternoon. Same position. Same coat. This time he was clearly looking toward the window, toward my table. I held his gaze for a second. That reflexive thing where you're not sure whether to look away first. And then he turned and walked on, very unhurriedly, like he'd simply stopped to check his phone. I told my friend Kelly about it that night. She said it was probably nothing. Maybe someone waiting for a bus. I agreed because I wanted to agree. I think we both understood there wasn't a bus stop on that block. The following week, I switched coffee shops. The new place was across campus on the second floor of an old office building. No street-facing windows, just skylights and rows of tables. I remember feeling vaguely ridiculous walking there, like I was accommodating a fear I hadn't earned. I sat down, opened my laptop, and worked for about 45 minutes before I happened to glance toward the staircase. She came up the stairs, crossed the room, sat at a table near the opposite wall, and looked at me. I packed my bag and left. After that, I stopped going to coffee shops entirely for about a week. I studied in the library, in dining halls, in my dorm room. But my roommate's schedule never matched mine, and the library had its own kind of noise. Chairs scraping, whispered conversations, people constantly moving. Eventually, I just wanted somewhere comfortable to work. So I picked a coffee shop in a different neighborhood, 20 minutes from campus by bus, a place I had never been before, a place nobody would reasonably associate with me. I got there around 3, bought a coffee, found a table by the front window, and settled in. For the first hour, nothing happened. Then something made me look up. He was standing outside the glass, facing inward. And when our eyes met, he smiled. Not a broad smile, just the slightest upward movement at the corners of his mouth. Enough to acknowledge that he knew I had seen him. I felt my stomach tighten. I pulled out my phone and took a photo through the window. I told myself it was documentation. Evidence. Something concrete. I sent it to Kelly and asked if she thought I was losing my mind. She called me almost immediately. "No," she said. "I can see him. You need to show somebody that." The next day, I reported it to campus security. They took a statement, copied the photo, asked questions I couldn't really answer. Nothing came of it. That night, I was sitting alone in my apartment trying to eat dinner when I opened the picture again. I wanted a better look at his face. Fear distorts memory. I wanted to remember him accurately. I zoomed in. Something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it immediately. The angle didn't make sense. I zoomed in further. Then I realized why. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were focused somewhere behind me. The window had caught a reflection. Dim. Distorted. Easy to miss. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. The reflection showed part of the coffee shop interior. And directly behind my chair was a person, standing close enough that they would have been only a few feet away. I couldn't see their face. The reflection was too imperfect. But I could see their outline. And I could see where they were looking. They weren't looking at me. They were looking out the window. At the man. And he was looking back. I spent the next several hours going through every photo on my phone. Screenshots, accidental pictures, anything taken inside that coffee shop during the previous few weeks. Every reflection became something I studied. Windows, polished counters, dark computer screens. I never found a clear image. Only fragments, shapes, suggestions. Enough to convince me the person had been there more than once. Not enough to identify them. I never saw the man again after that. Campus security never found anything useful. Kelly eventually stopped bringing it up. Life moved on the way life always does. Classes, exams, graduation, normal things. But even now, years later, I still catch myself checking reflections. Store windows, phone screens, dark television screens after they're turned off. Sometimes I look before I even realize I'm doing it. I've never seen the person behind me again. At least not clearly. I was 26 when I moved into the cheapest apartment I could find after taking a new job in another city. I want to be clear about what I mean by cheap. Not a good deal, not a hidden gem. Cheap in the way that means the hallway carpets are stained in patterns you don't want to think about. The smoke detectors are yellowed and probably dead, and the radiator heat clangs through the walls all night like someone's slowly working their way through the pipes with a wrench. I knew what I was getting. I told myself it was temporary. My unit was on the 3rd floor. The bedroom shared a wall with the apartment next door. The first few weeks were fine. I was tired enough from the new job that I could sleep through the radiator noise, through the street sounds, through all of it. Then sometime in the 3rd week, I started waking up around 1 in the morning. Not from a loud noise, from a quiet one. Scratching. Faint, rhythmic scratching coming from the shared wall. 3 scratches, then a pause. 3 scratches, then a pause. I lay there the first night counting the repetitions until I fell back asleep, telling myself it was mice. Old buildings have mice. That's just how it is. The second night, it happened again. Same time, same pattern. I told myself pipes, tree branches brushing the exterior wall. I went through the list of things it could be that didn't require me to do anything about it, and I found enough of them to get back to sleep. I mentioned it to the landlord when I went down to pay rent. Offhand, casual, I wasn't worried. I just wanted it noted. He looked confused before I'd even finished the sentence. He told me the apartment beside mine had been empty for over a year. Structural problems with the floor. The unit was locked, waiting on repairs that kept getting deferred. I laughed and said maybe rats had moved in. He didn't laugh. He said, "Could be." I don't know why that response unsettled me more than it should have. It was a reasonable thing to say, but something in the flatness of it stayed with me on the walk back upstairs. The scratching kept happening. Every night, reliably, just after midnight. Always behind the headboard. Always the same pattern. 3, pause, 3. I started sleeping on the couch some nights just to get away from it, which helped until I started listening for it from there instead. One night I'd had enough, and I knocked on the wall. 2 firm knocks, the way you'd knock on a door. The scratching stopped immediately. I sat there in the dark, waiting. 5 minutes, maybe more. Nothing. complete silence from that wall. I convinced myself I'd imagined the pattern, that it had just been some random building noise that happened to stop when I knocked, and I went to sleep. Looking back, that's probably the moment I should have started asking harder questions. But I didn't, and the weeks kept passing. Other things started accumulating. Small things, individually ignorable. I'd come home from work and find tiny piles of drywall dust along the baseboard near the shared wall. Fine white dust, the kind that comes from something being worked at slowly from the other side. It would be gone by the next morning, which I somehow found more unsettling than if it had stayed. I started waking up with the feeling that someone had just said my name. Not loudly, just enough to pull me out of sleep. That particular sensation of having heard something in the last half second of a dream that might not have been a dream. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't sure what I'd say. The floor vent is what broke it open. I dropped an AirPod one Saturday afternoon, and it bounced under an old cast iron vent near the baseboard on the shared wall side. I grabbed my phone flashlight, pulled the vent cover off, and leaned down to find it. The AirPod had fallen further than it should have. When I angled the light downward, I could see why. Beneath the vent, there was a narrow service crawl space running between my unit and the vacant apartment next door. Wide enough for pipes and insulation. Wide enough, it turned out, for other things. I moved the light slowly across the space. Insulation, pipes. Then fabric. A blanket, folded. I moved the beam further, and my stomach dropped through the floor. There was a mattress in there, thin, pushed against the far wall. Beside it, water bottles, several of them, food wrappers, a phone charger coiled on top of a folded jacket. Someone had arranged these things carefully, the way you arrange a space you intend to return to. I backed away so fast I hit the dresser behind me. I called the police from the hallway with the front door open because I didn't want to be in the apartment anymore. The investigation took several days. What they found was worse than I'd understood from the floor. The man had been living inside the building's maintenance passages, not just beside my unit, but throughout the building, using a network of crawl spaces and service corridors that the landlord apparently hadn't thought about in years. Nobody knew exactly how long he'd been in there. Months at minimum, possibly longer. Officers found observation holes drilled through the drywall in several apartments, mine included. A small hole high up near the ceiling, angled downward into the room. Deliberate, precise. I have no idea how long it had been there. The detail that stays with me, the one I keep coming back to, is something an officer mentioned while walking me out to the street. The scratching on the wall wasn't random, she said. The marks on my side of the drywall showed a consistent pattern. Someone had been using it to count. Days, she thought, or possibly routines, tracking something methodical enough to need a record. I moved out that week. I didn't go back for my things. I sent a friend. The building was eventually renovated. The landlord sold it not long after. I heard the whole floor was gutted. But sometimes now, lying in bed in a place I've lived for 2 years and have no reason to distrust, I'll hear the pipes settle inside the wall, and I'll be back in that third-floor apartment in an instant. Back to those first few weeks when I thought it was mice, when I thought it was branches, when I knocked on the wall and the scratching stopped, and I told myself I'd imagined the pattern. I hadn't imagined it. Someone heard me knock. And they stayed very, very quiet until I went back to sleep. If these stories kept you up tonight, my psychological thriller audiobooks are on this channel. Full length, same dark tone, completely free. Start with The Blackout. Link in the description.